From the heart of Nebraska's capital city, this is the Nebraska Family Alliance Report. Here's your host, Nate Graz.
The United States Supreme Court helps save girls' sports. We have great news to share about protecting girls' sports both nationally and locally, as well as updates on some major ballot initiatives here in Nebraska, all on the heels of America's 250th anniversary. I'm Nate Graz, Executive Director for Nebraska Family Alliance, and we have some important updates to talk about today. We'll break down what you need to know and what's at stake here in our state. But first, we have to start by recognizing this historic time period that we're in right now, having just celebrated the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. A quarter millennium of a constitutional republic established of the people, by the people, and for the people. And our founding documents affirm that our inalienable rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness come from God, not government. It is that truth that has guided our country and separated our nation from every other nation in the history of the world. And it is so central to the foundation for a free and flourishing society. So the question before us now is, what will America look like 250 years from today? Will we still hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, not born equal, but created equal, and that we have been endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Because as President Reagan famously said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We have to choose to preserve the blessings of liberty and to hand them down to the next generation. So as we reflect on the past, we have to also look forward and stand with courage for the principles and values that shaped our nation. And ultimately, we need to seek God for renewal and restoration. And that's what NFA is here to do. We know that the battle that we find ourselves in today is not a physical conflict like that was fought for our nation's independence, but we cannot afford to forget that there is a battle being waged every single day for the hearts and minds of the next generation and for the future of our country. And this is not a political battle. It's fundamentally a spiritual battle. So as we rightfully pause to reflect and celebrate 250 years of American history and our independence, we should not only celebrate our freedom, but also recommit ourselves to standing for and passing on these rights and freedoms and values to our children and our children's children. And as believers in Christ, we get to do this with a joyful spirit, bearing light to the world like a city on a hill that cannot be hidden. This is such a critical time in our nation's history, and that's why NFA is thrilled that our 2026 Life and Liberty Gala on Saturday, August 29th in Omaha will be featuring two of our nation's boldest voices today in Kirk Cameron and Riley Gaines. For decades, Kirk Cameron has encouraged families and challenged Christians to live courageously for Christ in a culture that is yearning for hope and truth. And Riley Gaines has become one of the leading advocates for protecting girls' sports, standing for fairness, common sense, and biological reality, even when it comes at a cost. We've had so many people tell us that this is one of their favorite nights of the whole year. And I think it's because it's so much more than just another event that happens or that people go to, but the encouragement and inspiration and momentum that is created that night at our Life and Liberty Gala gives people real hope and encouragement and the opportunity to be a part of what God is doing in our state and nation amid so many challenges against life and against the family and against religious freedom. And we see these threats and these challenges, but we know that there is also right now an opportunity for people of faith to act in this moment. It will be an incredible evening that you won't want to miss. You can purchase tickets and find more information on the Life and Liberty Gala Saturday, August 29th in Omaha at nebraskafamilyalliance.org. And we have now some incredible news to get to share about. Recently, the United States Supreme Court handed down a major landmark victory for protecting girls' sports. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in a decision that was combining two different cases centered around states like Nebraska that have laws to protect girls' sports by ensuring that biological boys are not competing in girls' sports. And in this case, in this ruling, the court ruled 9-0 that states can, in fact, restrict girls' sports teams to actually just girls based on biological sex under Title IX. And they also ruled 6-3 that states may do so under the Equal Protection Clause. This is a huge victory, one that we have been working towards for years. NFA even joined an amicus brief in support of laws that protect girls' sports that was filed with these cases. And in a news release, our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom described it as a win for biological reality that empowers states across the country to enact and enforce laws protecting female athletes. They go on to say that this is a victory for every girl who refused to stay quiet in the face of injustice. Men cannot be women, and no drug erases the male athletic advantage. Policies that ignore biological truth hurt people. In West Virginia, the male plaintiff defeated more than 470 girls over 1,400 times, won the women's state championship in shot put, and sexually harassed our client. The Attorney General for West Virginia, J.B. McCuskey, who helped argue this case, said it is a victory for every girl who has ever competed or dreamed of competing on a fair and safe playing field. The decision affirms what common sense and the law have long made clear. States have the right to designate sports teams based on biological sex, not gender identity. Without that delineation, Title IX is turned on its head, and decades of hard-fought progress to advance female athletes is erased. This landmark victory will give all states the clarity and confidence to ensure fairness and safety for female athletes today and for generations to come. So this is a great decision and really the culmination of years of faithful work by so many courageous athletes and state leaders and organizations like those in our Family Policy Council movement who have been working to protect girls' sports and to stand for truth. But our work isn't finished. There are many states who don't have these protections in place, and even a really important opportunity to strengthen our law and secure our protections for girls' sports through the Fairness for Girls ballot initiative. And this initiative would give us the opportunity to put our protections for girls' sports into the Nebraska Constitution so that our law cannot be erased or changed or altered, and really ensure that girls' sports, and so much more than just sports, but fairness and safety and opportunity will be protected for generations to come. And we are thrilled to get a share that we helped turn in more than 211,000 signatures in support of putting fairness for girls and protections for girls' sports on the ballot and into the Nebraska Constitution. And in fact, this is a new state record for the most number of signatures ever collected for any ballot initiative in Nebraska history. Signatures came from all 93 Nebraska counties, and this huge showing of support shows Nebraskans believe in supporting fairness and common sense, and that our laws and our Constitution should reflect the truth about biological reality and the differences between men and women. So this is really common sense. Opportunity, privacy, and safety are fundamental rights of every Nebraskan, and Fairness for Girls will establish these safeguards for girls' sports in the Nebraska Constitution once and for all. So now that signatures have been turned in, election officials will now begin the process of officially reviewing and verifying the submitted signatures before the measure can be certified for the 2026 election. But due to the large volume of signatures that were turned in, which was well above the threshold that's needed, Nebraska voters are going to have the opportunity in November to make history and become the first state to adopt these protections through a voter-led constitutional amendment. So this is a great opportunity, and we are grateful to everyone who helped make this possible, standing for truth, protecting future generations, going out and getting signatures, telling your friends and neighbors. And we're going to ask that that support continues. We're going to be working hard to ensure that voters across Nebraska understand this proposal and why it needs to be passed this November. Because we believe and supporting policies that strengthen families and protect the vulnerable and uphold the dignity and fairness of every individual. And that's why we're also standing in opposition to a different, very harmful ballot initiative that also appears likely to be on the ballot this fall that is attempting to legalize 24/7 online sports betting from anywhere in Nebraska. And this initiative, which is both a constitutional amendment to actually put online sports betting into our state constitution, as well as an accompanying statutory initiative, has been using the name Tax Relief Nebraska. And to tell voters that this is about tax relief, when the proposal is actually a major expansion of online gambling that is being financed by out-of-state gambling companies, whose own estimates, by the way, show less than 0.25% in property tax relief. That's right, less than 0.25% in property tax relief. And they've been using a self-funded study touting a projected $87 million in state revenue over 5 years. But what they're not telling people is that for the state to get that revenue, it's from a 20% tax on gross gaming revenue. So in other words, we're taxing the profits of the sports books, so the money that they keep after people gamble and lose it. And so to get that money, we're talking about Nebraskans having to lose $435 million over that same time period. And by the way, only $61 million from that $87 million number actually goes to funding property tax relief. And Nebraska's annual property tax burden, by the way, is over $5 billion annually. So that's $25 billion over this 5-year period, which means it would be offsetting Nebraskans' property taxes by well under 1%. But of course, those numbers also don't account for the broader economic and social costs of online sports betting, which study after study and state after state has confirmed that legalizing online sports betting leads to reduced household spending and savings, money being diverted away from local businesses, serious increases in addiction and financial problems, even suicides and domestic violence, and a greater demand for social services, which are paid for by taxpayers. This has been such a disaster in other states that lawmakers from both sides of the aisle in states that have legalized online sports betting are already trying to repeal it and have expressed regret. The governor of Ohio even went so far as to call signing a bill to legalize online sports betting his single biggest mistake in 8 years as governor. So this is not about tax relief. This is not about helping families and parents and kids or student athletes in Nebraska. This is about enriching a handful of national sports betting companies at the expense of children and families and student athletes. And we know that Nebraska's future is never going to be built by getting our kids hooked on gambling and enriching billion-dollar out-of-state corporations and asking Nebraska families to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in exchange for pennies in tax relief. Instead, we believe that we should be strengthening families and protecting children and actually building an economy that creates wealth, not one that depends on Nebraska families losing it. So we're going to keep standing for truth, and you can get more information and learn how you can help partner with NFA to advance family, freedom, and life at nebraskafamilyalliance.org. Thanks for listening to the Nebraska Family Alliance Report.